Welcome to the Alaska Realtor live stream. My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today we're very lucky to be joined by a good friend of mine, Katrina Benton, who lives over on Kodiak Island, and she's got uh, quite a bit of experience. Her and her family have some pretty deep roots on Kodiak, so she'll be ready to talk about that this evening and about what it's like living up there. Before we get started, obviously, everybody, just a bit of housekeeping. These live streams are only as useful as the comment sections are. So if you guys have any questions, concerns about what it's like living on Kodiak, even if you're just looking at going and visiting sometime this summer, please, by all means, feel free to drop it in the comment section and we'll get that answered for you. So, Katrina, thank you very much for joining us. There we go. Katrina, you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry about that. Hi, Jamin, and hi, everyone. I'm so excited to join you guys today and talk about Kodiak and answer your questions and just share with everyone.
Yep, absolutely. So let's go ahead and start from the 30,000-foot view then. You and your family have quite a history and quite a background with Kodiak. So, would you like to kind of start off just by sharing that?
Yeah. So my grandparents moved here in the 70s. And my grandpa, I think, originally moved here. They were missionaries, and he moved here to be a pastor at a church. That turned into him owning and operating a sawmill and a lumber yard. And that turned into him being a realtor. And so then my dad is a realtor. He had a bunch of kids. They all had a bunch of kids. So it's really cool living here and raising my kids with all their cousins and second cousins and whatnot. It's a really cool place to live. I think I've left a couple times. I always come back though.
Yeah, I feel like half the town you guys are probably related to in some way, shape, or fashion, huh?
Yeah, we're all Kodiak cousins. That's what we say.
Yeah, that's guess that pretty much well sums it up. So you kind of mentioned leaving Kodiak a couple times. Well, actually, let me ask you this. When you were growing up on Kodiak, did you realize just how unique um, Kodiak is?
Okay, so my experience is different. This is normal and everywhere else is strange. I still remember going to the mainland the first time and just everything that's up there that we just don't have here. It's just a different way of life. It's like a time machine kind of. And so I lived up in Anchorage for probably 10 years. I lived out in Wasilla for a few years. And I lived in Austin, Texas for a few years. And it's just a whole different world from any of those places. And I think the thing is that in any of those places, you can say, oh, I need to go grab this. And you can just go to a store and grab it. Here we live on Amazon Prime. Here it's just very more connected also. So I know all my neighbors. I know all their kids. My kids know everybody. There's not really strangers here too much. And I think it makes it for like a safer community and more I think I was really shocked about that when we moved up to the mainland, was that like you could have neighbors and not know everything about them. Kind of.
I still know next to nothing about my neighbors. So yeah, totally.
No, I went to school with most of my neighbors. So it's just a different way to live. It's really like a time machine. I think it's like how people probably lived before the internet and whatnot, and just being connected to each other in a
Do
different way
do
than like,
most most people who like when they're raised in Kodiak, do they usually end up going back to Kodiak, or is there kind of a cycle of people who leave and then come back, or do people usually stay pretty stationary?
so some people hate it here because of the rain and the dark. And as soon as they're 18, they go to college and never come back. And then there's some people that just stay here whole time. They don't really go off and do that. They find jobs here in Kodiak. They'll go to college and then come back and teach, or go to college and come back and work in a job here. But the thing that surprises me is like when I came back, most of my friends are not here, like that I grew up with. But it's kind of unusual to come back here, just to like what happened
Trina,
there?
you okay? There we go.
Yeah, somebody called me. Sorry.
Okay.
Um, where was I going with that? Yeah, it's just different
Gotcha.
to come
Gotcha.
back.
So I guess let's go ahead and explain real quick for those who might not be aware. Can you kind of explain where Kodiak is and what makes it so unique?
Okay, so Kodiak is an island in South Alaska, like South Central Alaska. We're not over there by Canada, and we're not all the way out the chain. We're kind of in between all of that, out in the Gulf of Alaska. Um, it's the I think it's the second biggest island in the U.S., and it has a population, I think about 7,000 in town and whatnot. We're highly dependent. Our economy is on fishing and also on the Coast Guard base. Those are the two main drivers of our economy here. Um, it's way out here in the ocean, though, so it's unusual for us to get a lot of snow. It's so people think Alaska and they think cold, cold, and we're just rainy, rainy. If you think more like the climate in Seattle, is pretty comparable to our climate. And we have a lot of people coming and going because of the Coast Guard, but usually they stay for a couple years and really integrate into our community. And then when they retire, they move back here. So we have a lot of that going on as well. Just people retiring and moving here.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Yeah, I was about to say, I think the military and then people with the ferry getting stranded there are probably the two biggest population drivers for Kodiak.
Yeah.
Yeah, so quick story time. Actually went and visited Kodiak. I think it was like for a solid week, about a year and a half ago, and just trying to unplug a little bit. And like every day I was there, like it was the same process. I'd get up, okay, I'm kind of bored now. I'm gonna go for a hike, just absolute terror, terror going through the rainforest because I mean it's all just like it's moss and like it's dead quiet everywhere you're going. But these big Kodiak bears are like all over the place. And I saw like five of them within the first 24 hours that I was there.
Keeps it
And
exciting.
it makes it exciting, but like, yeah, just tired, waking up, bored, and then just terror, like going through these woods.
Yeah.
But yeah, my stuff got well, not my stuff, the ferry, because I, drove down from Anchorage at the time, drove down to Homer, put my car in the ferry, brought my car over to Kodiak. And then the ferry tells me like the day up, like within 24 hours of leaving, they said, hey, yeah, man, we totally can't help you, and you're gonna be stuck there for 2 weeks. So yeah, luckily y'all were able to help me out with that one, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how Kodiak probably gets most of their cars in new people.
That's
It's that way
that's
too.
you just get stuck here. Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating sometimes just having only access on a boat or on an airplane because we are an island and we're an island that's really far away. There's no bridges or anything. Um, you can get stuck here, but I think you got lucky when you flew down here because you didn't have to circle and go back. So a lot of the times on the airplane when we come in, that'll be too windy or whatever, they just cancel it, or we come over almost all the way and the visibility's bad, so they turn around and go back to Anchorage. But I think you got lucky with the airplane, unlucky with the ferry, but lucky with the airplane when you came to
I,
visit.
I did I did have that going for me, and also like I went to Barrow just a little bit ago, and I did not understand, why we landed and everybody just started cheering. I was like, okay, well that's seems to be an unproportional reaction to just landing a plane. But then I found out afterwards that they'd been trying for like 4 or 5 days
Yeah.
to land in Barrow because it was like around the fall time frame, and they couldn't land just because they had all the fog out there at the time of year. And so we just barely timed that out, but then we're like, we are like on pins and needles for when we're supposed to leave because the plane has to get here. And is there going to be
Yep.
enough fog or too much fog? That had more pressure to it. Like my dad had some meds with him that are pretty powerful. If he doesn't get it, like bad stuff happens. And I'm like, oh crap.
So yeah.
Um,
Like if I'm going to go up to Anchorage or or like if say I wanted to go to Seattle for a vacation, I'm going to go to Anchorage. I'm going to book my plane ticket 3 days early. And if I get to Anchorage 3 days early, cool, I have 3 days to run around. Um, but a lot of the time I end up with 1 day early or no days early. So it's just one of those things like people don't think about because everywhere else is so connected on the grid, on the road system. But like Barrow here, anywhere where you're really going to fly in and out of, especially in remote Alaska, things are a little bit different than just driving out to Wasilla from Anchorage or something. Um, which can have that's its whole other thing. But I think that once people get here, if they like it, sometimes they get a couple extra bonus days as well. I think they look at that as a way to look at that when people get stuck. I say you get here for a couple extra days.
exactly. So, what are there certain times of the year that are easier than others to fly into Kodiak?
Yeah. So if you come May through August is a lot better. As far as weather goes, like right now, we just had a horrible storm. We have a lot of snow outside, which is pretty unusual. And it's pretty windy, and I'm sure that the flights are flying today anyways because it's nice and clear. Um, just the winter time, we get all that. You just think about you've been watching on the news all that water going to California. Well, that usually comes up here in the form of rain, and we get a lot of rain here in the summertime, but even more in the winter. So I think if you were going to come visit, the best time would be May through August. It's warm. We have a lot of sunny days. You can go hiking, you can go to the beach, you can go kayak. There's a lot of fun things to do here in the summer. In the winter, it's a little bit less to go do. I think some people like to cross country ski, but we really don't get a lot of snow. But like today would be a great day for that. I just,
You guys can still like go surfing in the winter time up in Kodiak, right? Because like they have the surfers beach on the other side of the island.
yeah, people surf here out on that huge waves out there. It's like what, an hour drive out there. And it is pretty amazing just to watch all those waves. We used to have a summer camp right there by that beach when I was a little kid. And we would just go play on that beach all the time, but never go play in the waves because they'll knock you over.
Yeah, and it's cold, and it's very cold.
So
That
it's
is
cool.
that's pretty much the Bering Sea right there for all intents and purposes.
So we swim, we go to the beach and go swimming in the summertime. But I don't think most people that are, if you're not from here, I don't know, we're acclimated, like being born and raised here and pretty acclimated to it. But yeah, no, I wouldn't go swimming right now for sure. No,
Yep.
they do a New Year's Day. They all run down into the beach on Nobe Beach, and they all run into the ocean for like a polar bear plunge thing. I go, oh gosh, those people are braver than me.
Yeah, I mean, all power to them. I think my days of being willingly jumping into the cold water is those are probably gone.
Yeah.
So we've got a comment here from Oliver, and I'm trying to get a little bit more clarity on it, but he's just asking how are things going there in Anchorage and Kodiak Island. So we're talking about Anchorage. We're right around the breakup season right now, so obviously everyone's ready to be done with winter, except for a couple freaks that are really love winter sports. I guess those people do exist. But by and large, we're kind of ready to be done with winter at this point. Looking forward to summer, and we just got some new fresh snow that like dropped just a couple hours ago, as over in Kodiak. So yeah, that's about how we're doing here.
I said, yeah, pretty similar. We just got a whole bunch of snow. I thought we were in spring. We had, nice out a couple weeks ago, and just the last week we've just gotten snow, snow, snow. So it's a little bit slushy and icy out right now because it melts and then freezes and melts and freezes. So it's not optimum driving conditions today, but I'm hopeful that that'll melt and we can have spring soon.
I mean, knock on wood. Like the thing is, oh man, I'm so done. I'm so over this. But yeah, right now too, you add all of that, and then like the driving chain module, like on my car, like is probably gonna go out at any point now. So not only am I driving around on this really icy road and everything, but my vehicle can stop being a car at any moment. So it's a lot of fun, let me tell you.
Yikes.
But anyway, getting back to Kodiak, um, yeah, there's a lot of history there that I think a lot of people might not really appreciate. So can you maybe talk a little bit about how Kodiak got founded and kind of how it developed over the years?
So Kodiak has been home to people for I think over 7,000 years. Is what they say that the Aleutic people have lived here. And then the Russians came over, I think the 1700s, and settled here. This was the capital of Russian Alaska. The they settled here. They got all the sea otters and just furs. It was like a fur trade thing that they did here. Um, and then when it got sold, a lot of the Russian people stayed here or it married in with the native people. And so it's just been kind of a unique culture that the island has had over the last, I say, couple hundred years. Um, and so the native people, really active community. They have dances. They're beautiful if you ever get a chance to see the Kodiak Aleutic dancers. They have a Luchic Heritage Center here. We also have something called the Baranov Museum, which is like a museum about that Russian period, where it was the capital of Russian Alaska.
Is that the
Um,
one? Okay, is that the one that's kind of down by the loading dock area?
yes,
Is that
if you get
okay?
off
I
the
have
ferry, it's right there off the ferry. And I think that's a really cool place to go visit to learn about the history. They have all kinds of stuff in there. That was actually, I think, the governor's house. I can't remember. Um, we also have the Kodiak Wildlife Refuge. So most of our island is inhabited by animals and not people. There's a city here in Kodiak, and there's a little bit of road. You can go about an hour each direction. And there are villages sprinkled throughout all over the island. But everything in the middle is for the bears, basically, for the bears and the goats. We have mountain goats, we have bears, we have ermine, we have foxes. We don't have like moose and caribou, but it's mostly wildlife here. I think there's more bears than people on the island, um, which is fun. I think, but most of them leave us alone. We do have some that come into town, but most of the bears like their refuge. And that's a really cool thing. Like if you come visit, you can go, they have flight seeing tours. And so you fly out and you can go see all the bears. Um, if you come in the summertime, you can go watch them all catching fish and it's pretty cool. And we have a lot of boats here. So I think that's also neat. People like to come down and look at our harbor and just see the scale of all of our canneries and everything. That's really where our economy comes from. I think that's another cool part to come look at. Um, I think there's just so much history here. It's one of the oldest places in Alaska, right? And so we've got where the 64 earthquake knocked out half the town, and then everything kind of got built up right there after the 60s. So stuff before that, buildings before that are pretty rare, but there are some, including that museum we just talked about. Um, yeah, I think it's got a lot of history here. I think if you're a history buff, especially over like international politics, and come look at that. Wasn't that a joke last year that Russia was saying they wanted Alaska back? I was like, oh no.
yeah, it's like that's bad news for Kodiak.
No, no, no. So yeah, I think it's got a strategic location, and that we process a lot of like the crab that people eat in the world, and salmon. We process a lot of salmon through here. Um, I wish I knew exact numbers, but I know I grew up on a salmon seiner. My dad fished when I was little, and it's just kind of a way of life here to go fishing. And I don't mean like with a pole, like to go out on a boat with a big net and catch a lot of fish.
Right,
Um,
right. Yeah, we're talking like filling up not just your freezer, but everyone else's in town's freezer
yeah.
too.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, the other cool thing about Kodiak is they have like the Abercrombie fort that was built over there during World War II because there was a big concern the Japanese were were going to try to attack Alaska, and they ended up, yes, they occupied some territory for a little bit, but it was over on the island of Attu, and yeah, that was so far removed from the rest of Alaska. I don't think the rest of us really felt it, but um, yeah, it's interesting with Alaska because World War II is actually like what really spurred the development of a lot of these places, and you can kind of see it, like you mentioned, like the building, like we have a lot of building around this time, and then there's not a whole lot. Well, you can definitely tell there's a big spurt of building right around like the 60s and the 40s.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you guys have completely different rushes. Like the rest of Alaska had their gold rush, but that didn't really happen here. Here it was like a rush for fishing, and World War II really brought a lot of people here and a lot of families here. And it's pretty cool because I just always thought that was a normal thing to do, to run around in the woods and find bunkers. And there are forts as children, and we go play. And I always thought that's normal, but I've never seen that anywhere else. So I'm guessing that's not a normal experience. They also have the big guns that they the big cannons that they had to defend, like the defense points. We would climb all over those, and um, there's actually, they made that into a museum. One of the biggest bunkers they've made into a really cool World War II museum. But yeah, the military history here in Kodiak goes back a long ways, and it's just such a strategic point. Um, in the world, because we're up here, we have water that are like, our ocean doesn't freeze like up north. We have passage year round. We have a deep port. We have right off the coast here is where that shelf drops off so that they can go catch the crabs that live down there.
Right.
And it's just a really, I think, unique place to live, like you were saying. um, so many differences though. Like you can't just say, oh, I want to buy, I mean, anything like clothes. You got to go online. There's a small Walmart here, a very small Walmart. And then there is a Safeway here. And there's a handful of like outfitter stores, hiking stuff, fishing supplies. And that's basically it. So everything has to be planned ahead. And it's not fair. Sometimes you just can't, and you have to make do with things. Um,
Yeah. Well, I remember like just for stuff as simple as when we you jumped onto the Trailblazer project, doing the market updates for Kodiak, even like getting the mic, like in
yeah,
you over to you. Like I was like, oh yeah, you just pop over at Walmart and you'll be able to find a mic over there. And it's like, oh yeah, it's Kodiak. Never mind. This is gonna be an ordeal.
yeah. And so everything is like that. So my greenhouse, the cover ripped. So I have to order a new greenhouse cover. So we order it, and they send me the wrong one. And then you have to send it back. And then by the time you get it back, it's already July. I think that was my experience last summer. And I said, well, how am I supposed to start my garden now? It's too late. So hopefully this year goes better. But there's just certain things. This year I've already ordered all my seeds. I'm on it this year, just because last year we had, in our greenhouse, we had dandelions grow, and that's all.
Yeah. Yeah. On average, how long does it take for you guys to actually get stuff when it's shipped over to you? Like when you do Amazon Prime, I know no one expects like same
two,
day or
two,
overnight
three
shipping with
weeks.
Kodiak, but
Depending on weather, it's about 2 weeks.
okay. Okay.
And then sometimes stuff takes longer, but it usually within 2 weeks. Sometimes I'll go on Amazon and order something, and I'll be like shocked because it comes within a week. Um, but you really have to plan ahead. There's no like, oh, it's my friend's birthday, I better order her something. Like you better find something in your house. So like you have to plan ahead for everything here. But I think that's good, in some ways, because it keeps me from like spending my money frivolously, which I kind of did when I lived in Anchorage. I'd be bored and go to Target and just go shopping and have fun. Can't do that here. So
Yeah, that's gonna be kind of a sad circle you're gonna be doing over in Walmart. So I don't think
yeah.
anybody wants to be that person on Friday night.
Yeah, and like the other part of that, we have like 5 or 6 restaurants here, and they're good restaurants, but I think if you go to the same thing every time, um, it gets to a point where it's just like, oh gosh, when we go to Anchorage, it's like my kids always want to get Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, go to the Olive Garden, go to like just places up in civilization. I think they just want food that mom didn't cook because we really don't go out a whole lot here.
Yeah, and most of the restaurants over there are, very American,
Yeah.
burgers and fries kind of cuisine. So if you want any kind of variety, yeah, I can definitely see you got to get off the island for that. Uh,
Yep.
so we do have a question coming in from. Okay, I know I'm going to mispronounce this, so forgive me, but I believe that's Alahase Studios. How's the beaches there in Kodiak in the summer?
In the summer, the beach is my very, very favorite place. There are some beaches that are really rocky, but you can still hang out, have a bonfire, watch the waves. If it's warm, so if it gets above 70, I'm going swimming. And then we have a beach called Menashka Beach. They call it White Sands Beach because it's a lot of volcanic ash that turned into sand right there. And so it's a big white beach, and it's very shallow water when the tide does come in. Um, my other favorite beach is Mill Bay Beach. It's like half a mile from my house. We'll go down there. We'll throw the kayaks on the truck. We'll go down there and go kayaking if it's a nice sunny day, um, and just paddle around and have fun. There's usually somebody there having a bonfire in the summertime if it's a nice day. The cool thing is like the sun doesn't go down in the summer, so we stay out all night, and then you realize, oh my goodness, it's 2 in the morning. Down there at the beach, and we go camping down there. Um, Another beach I really like is in town. It's called Mission Beach, and it's really good for like collecting sea glass. So there seems to be a lot that washes up right there. And so for arts and crafts projects, we go get sea glass down there sometimes. And then of course there's that Surfers Beach you got to drive out to, and that one is huge, soft sand that you can just hang out on. It's not a rocky beach at all. And right down from there is another one called Fossil Beach, where it's just these huge cliffs, and you can just look at them and see all these fossils, and it's really neat. And so a lot of times people will go camp way out there. That's out there by that rocket launch facility that they have out there. They have a spaceport out next to that beach.
Yeah, again, Kodiak's a very, very interesting place. You've got the rockets going on there. You've got that. I mean, the cool thing about that drive going from Kodiak and driving out to that beach is you pretty much drive the entire length. Well, not of the entire island. I looked at a map recently and I realized, hey, going out to Surfers Beach, that's not really the entire island. That's just the most you have road for.
Yeah,
So
we have road for 15 minutes one direction and about an hour the other direction, and that's all. So it does
yeah,
feel like a long ways, but
it
it's huge island. I think that's the part. It's a huge island. It's got more um animals than people. So like it feels very like big. I think that the expansive, the vastness of it is kind of hard to understand, unless, like you're saying, you look at that on the map and go, "Oh my gosh, that island is huge."
Yeah, it's an absolute must because I mean, especially even if it's only an hour, you get a drive. But I mean, it's still very picturesque driving. You've still got these really like dramatic topographical features. You've got
Yes.
big gulches and stuff suddenly popping up. You've got mountains. The mountains in Kodiak are kind of interesting. They're really dramatic and everything, but they're not particularly tall. They're
Steep.
like mountains, but they're very, like, proportional to the size of the island, if that makes any sense. Like,
Y-
it's
Yeah, they're pretty steep, some of them, and then we've got the ones that are kind of rolling too. Like those are the ones I like to climb. I don't like the steep ones. There's some of them that
oh,
I'm like, no,
man,
thank you.
Barometer Mountain was
Not
oh,
for
that
me.
was yeah, okay, so for those of you who don't know, the way the airport is set up, you've got ocean here, you've got the tarmac right there where the planes land, and then you've got this stupidly steep mountain called Barometer Mountain, like right there at the end of the runway. And a lot of people will climb up that thing. And like I went to the trailhead while I was there. And keep in mind, I just got over COVID like a 2 or 3 weeks beforehand. I am still not 100% yet. But I go to this trailhead and they've got all sorts of disclosures in there in like bright red, like do not come up here or your chances are better you're going to die than you're going to make it kind of stuff. And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's not a big deal. I got this." But no joke, it was like just one small step away from needing to have like climbing gear. Like it was just that steep. Got about halfway and I was like, I'm just going to enjoy the scenery and we're going to call this a day. Like it was just that steep.
Yeah. We like to go over Old Woman's or out here in Three Sisters, there's a couple trails that we like to do, take the dogs up, it's fun. But some of them I'm like, no, thank you. They do a thing in the summertime. I think it's our chamber, and they go, it's called Adjust Your Altitude. And you take these stickers and you climb all the peaks, and then you take a picture at the top of the sticker, and then you get some kind of prize. And then everyone in town does this. And so it's just really kind of cool in the summer to see. But I'll do the foothills challenge, but I'm not one for climbing high up the mountains. My husband takes my dogs up all those mountains. We have our littlest dog is a Chihuahua, and she likes to climb all those big mountains. She's very buff.
You pretty much have to be. Yeah.
She's a very tough little dog. Yeah, I think it's really cool though. If you're into hiking, this is like the place because we have more trails than roads, I think.
Yeah, I can definitely corroborate that. Yes, that's very true. I had like a new trail every day, and the cool thing about it, like there was one day I went out there, I cannot remember the name of the road. I just remember seeing like some really iron guard looking people watching me as I was going. I was like, am I supposed to be here? I didn't see any signs. I think I'm good. I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. My phone doesn't work. Hopefully this
Oh,
works out. But I go out there. It's driving for about 30 minutes on this dirt road. And I get to like this big lake. And there's like just a bunch of just empty boats like sitting out in the middle of this lake. And eerie as all get out. And I think I ended up like just turning around because I took like 2 or 3 like minutes like hiking into this rainforest all by myself way distant like this and I was like I should probably turn around, like this probably isn't the best idea I've ever had.
yeah. Don't get lost out there either.
Yeah,
That's
well,
another thing.
even dumber. Okay, even dumber, I didn't tell anyone where I was going either, like not even like back in like Anchorage, which again I don't know what they would even do, like if I don't
Yeah.
show up, like what's oh he was supposed to be here a week ago, well that's not great.
Yeah, it's the edge of the wilderness, right? And so I think it's really interesting to live in an environment where like the wilderness is right there and it's not just farmland or pastures or something. It's a rainforest full of bears. So
Yeah, and it's so interesting too because you still see like the kind of the legacy of a bunch of programs where they try to bring agriculture here or they tried to do all these experiments, the Coast Guard, the fossils, you've got the indigenous population, kind of the evidence of the legacy there. You've got the Russian legacy, you've got the World War II, and like it's all just mashed together into this tiny little space. So it's something else. So real quick from Sean, we go out there sometimes to do maintenance on the Alaska jets. Haven't been myself yet. Sean, you definitely need to make that happen. Preferably, don't take the ferry if you can avoid it. All right, another question in here. Last question: is it expensive to rent there? And I'm sure that's something a lot of folks are thinking about.
it is expensive to live here in general. Our rents typically are more than Anchorage. Um, I think for a three-bedroom home, you'd expect to pay like $2,400. For like a one-bedroom apartment, if you could find it, probably about $1,500, $1,600. Um, we don't have a lot of rentals that come up. It's not difficult to rent like my units that I have. They rent out very, very quickly. And it's also the same thing with buying a home. But our home prices here are a little bit higher. And if one comes on the market and it's priced right, it's gone right away. I think today we might have one or two homes on the market total. Like it's very, very difficult. I don't, if someone calls me and says, "Could I need a rental?" I have no idea today. I have no leads on rentals and on homes for sale. Same. It's very difficult to find housing. And so I think that the best plans I've seen like people make is they'll say, "I'm going to move to Kodiak in a couple years." And they just watch those listings, watch those listings, watch those listings, make sure they're pre-approved and they're good to go. When something good comes up, I'll go look at it for them, usually because they're not here, through FaceTime or something. And then if they like it, they come up and look at it and buy it. But people that just fly in, like, "I'm going to fly in on these 3 days and I'm going to find a house," very difficult to do. Because when that happens, when people do that, and it happens quite often where people will make a trip here to kind of look, we'll just drive around. I'll show them, the 4 or 5 houses. If we're lucky, we'll have that many that are available. And it's more of like getting to know the neighborhoods and where you want to live when you're doing that, not necessarily expecting to find your perfect home. The other thing is, like, for rentals or for purchasing, you can't come to me and say, "I need a 4-bedroom house with a 2-car garage and a walk-in closet, granite countertops, skylights, and it has to be on the beach and I want to pay 400." Like, you can't do that. It's more like, we're going to go look at the couple houses that are available and which one do you like the most. It's not the same situation. When I sold in Anchorage, I would sit down with people and they'd give me their dream list and I'd go find it. And it doesn't work that way here, unfortunately.
Yeah, like it's kind of become more and more like that. I think everywhere the past couple of years, just because the what's available is just not really keeping up with the demand. So, but yeah, I can only imagine for somewhere like Kodiak.
Hmm.
Now, I did see that they had some newer houses kind of closer to the Coast Guard base. Is that something they plan on expanding out anytime soon, or is there just because the thing with Kodiak, like it's kind of limited on like the space you can actually use because so much of it is like mountains right there on top of you. So is there?
Mountains, national parks, there's native lands, there's the wildlife refuge. We really can't just go out and build because this is a protected place. Um, so we really can't just go build new subdivisions. And I think they're working on trying to get some put in, but it's just the logistics of it are very, very difficult because you're working with lands that are protected for the most part because it's expanded. All the private land it's all built out. So, like for my house where I live, I moved back here 7, 8 years ago and I bought my grandparents' house. Um, and my house, when I was a child, it was woods all around us. And now I share a fence line I have an acre that shares a fence line with 8 different people all around me. Because it used to just be the woods and then my friend's house and then woods and then the beach. Like, it's just so different now because it's all built up. And then they put in a development out at the end, out past the airport, past the Coast Guard base. There's a development called Cliff Point, and they've got multi-million-dollar homes and very expensive lots, very gated community, and that's just being developed like over the last couple of years. That's been an interesting thing to watch happen. They have sold a lot of the lots. Only a few houses are out there though. So there's one that's like a show home and it's a multi-million-dollar home. And that's more catered to people that it's like a second home or a vacation home. Um, than people that want to live there year round and be driving back and forth. I know, to me it seems like, oh gosh, a 30-minute drive, that's so far to get into town to get milk or some bread. So that's out there. And I think also a lot of people retire and they're going to buy out there and build their dream home out there because the the view and the setting are just crazy, like beautiful. And I think people come here from other places. I see it. I know it's pretty, but I don't come here and say, "Oh gosh, this ocean view, it just takes my breath away," because this is my normal. So I go everywhere else and I say, ugh.
Yeah, like if you went to like Nevada, Arizona, like that would really stand out to you. But
It does.
yeah, but
Whenever I
this
go.
you kind of you start taking it for granted.
Yep.
But yeah, those multi-million properties are like awesome out there. Like I've kind of just checked them out. a little bit just from a distance, and I mean, it looks like a really nice Kodiak-esque kind of property, like situated in the Shire from the Lord of the Rings. Like that's what it looks like.
Yeah,
So
that's what it is.
yeah, beautiful, beautiful home. But yeah, it's totally just for like Kevin Costner's of the world. That's who those were made for.
Yeah, it puts a lot of it makes it look like our real estate market is more active than it is because they have so many lots out there for sale, and it's like that's all that we have on our MLS basically. And then every now and then we'll get a house. I'm just talking about the winter time. Um, Hopefully we'll start getting some listings soon. But this winter has just been like two, three houses on the market, all for like normal people that could afford it. Um, all winter long. It's been a really rough winter as far as that goes. And I'm really hoping that this summer we get a little more activity. Um, we're not driven so much by interest rates here like other places. We get Coast Guard people transfer in, transfer out. They have to sell. They have to move. It's not like a choice. But I see that a lot of local people that have a choice are kind of putting moves off until the interest rates go back down.
Right. So we do have a question from Big Game Alaska Someday. Do you experience island fever? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Yes. So one of the reasons a lot of kids that grow up here leave right away is because it's a real thing. Like you're stuck in this different environment, right? And it gets very mundane day to day. It can be very boring and tedious. How I deal with that is I go on a lot of vacations. I like to go all over, take a week, take a break, get some sun, do some shopping. Um, but yeah, it's definitely a real thing. I think there's people that are here that never leave, and I think they go a little crazy. Um, just because I think as humans, we need more exciting things in our life than just the tedium of day to day. And I think that people get that everywhere. I don't think it's like unique to here. Um, I think the island fever though that happens for me is when it gets really dark and really rainy and it just gets really depressing outside. And I think a lot of people here feel that way because you'll go and it's a nasty day. You go in the store and everybody's grumpy. It's a sunny day, everybody's happy. But I definitely try to stay here all summer. I don't want to miss a day of that. But wintertime, I try to leave every 2 or 3 months. I try to leave for a week or two.
That's smart. So kind of a follow-up question. Is there special rules and regulations that benefit Kodiak residents for hunting and fishing versus Alaska residents?
I don't think so. No, a lot of people come down here that are just Alaska residents to go hunting, and we have a lot of people from out of state hunting too here. Um, the thing here we can do is like subsistence fishing and subsistence hunting here, but I think that's for all Alaskans. If you want to get a bear, you have to get. I think there's like a lottery for that, or I'm not even sure. I think you'd call a bear guide is what I would call a bear guide. There's a
Yeah,
couple different
yeah,
people that do that.
yeah, I'm pretty sure you're actually required if you're going for a Kodiak. I think it's required you have to get a guide. I
Yeah,
could be very wrong, but I heard
I
that at
think
least a long time ago. But it sounds right. I wouldn't want to just be like, okay, here's your 30-06. Go figure it out, kid.
so. My cousins will just go get deers. They'll go get their tags and go get deers every summer, so that way we can have meat in the winter. But um, I'm not sure on that one if it's like a whole state I'm not sure. I don't go do that part. The guys in my family do that part, and then they have a set net site and they go fishing, and so I get to just stay in town and sell the houses in the summer.
Yep, that is the way to do it. And
Yeah,
then if you can get like 1, maybe 2 days of doing the subsistence, like salmon
yeah,
fishing, like
yes,
that's the way to do it too. But I guess you
yeah,
guys can just go out there on your sceners and like catch those a lot easier than we can with the dip nets down in Kenai. So that got something going for you there.
yeah. So, and my family, they have set net sites, so they just spend all like basically all the men in my family and a lot of the teenagers too. They all go out to the set net site all summer and just catch fish, catch fish, catch fish. and they have it's probably a 2 hour boat ride away, and they just out there all summer catching fish and then come back, fill up the freezers, and we're good for the winter. Um, the part about the hunting though, you have to have your permit. You have to, like, when you get it, you have to click the tag. And that is really enforced. We have pretty good game management down here. I think they really protect our wildlife and make sure that people follow the rules, because it's a really unique thing that we have down here, having so much animals and fish, and just what we have here is really special. And I'm really glad that the government like puts people here to take care of it. It's, I think, a great thing, how they manage it all.
Yep. So coming in from Alahaye Studios, it's really expensive. You are better off getting in a raffle. And
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
That is good to know. All right. Coming in from Mr. Costa 16 Auto, what jobs usually will be available in the area? And with that expensive life, what draws the people and what do they do for jobs there?
Okay. So I think our biggest employer, well, there's the Coast Guard. But I think that's the biggest thing that happens here. The second biggest thing, it's not like one employer, but it's like a whole industry of fishing. So people work on the boats, people go out fishing, there's other people that work on the boats physically, mechanically, and building boats is a thing here, and repairing engines, and being mechanical is a really good idea here. If you can weld and that kind of thing, there's always work. We have huge canneries and we process so much seafood here. There is always job available with all the different processors. There's like a whole cannery row, and it's just cannery after cannery after cannery. And they pay pretty well, and a lot of people work there. We have a Providence hospital here, so they are always hiring for anything medical, from front desk to janitorial to doctors to nurses. They are always hiring. We've got, the Safeway and the Walmart. That's where a lot of people work. They pay pretty well, and it's a job as a job, right? And then our school system is actually one of the biggest employers here. We have 3 elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school. There's also like remote learning, people that do homeschool. So a lot of people here work as teachers. It's like a lot of my friends that I grew up, moved away, went to college, came back, became teachers. There's a lot of opportunity here for people that are entrepreneurial, mechanical, that kind of thing. It's if somebody wants to work, there's work to do here. It doesn't sometimes people have to work 2 or 3 jobs. That's another part of the economy here, especially like our food cost here is way more than anywhere like that's on the road system, just because they have to either fly or ship all of our food in. So that drives up our cost of living. We also have fairly high property taxes because it is a lot to maintain. We can't just rely on like the road to stay clear. Like they have to constantly take care of the roads, the potholes, all the things like that. And we're in a remote place. And so those things cost more money. The schools cost more to run, the roads cost more to fix, everything costs more. Um, so I think a lot of people move here with a job in mind. And so I meet a lot of people moving here because they want to work at they work at Providence, or they work in Coast Guard, or another job opportunity that they find. There's a lot of small businesses here. A lot of them went out. We had a lot of like a very vibrant downtown when I was a child. We got a Walmart, and a lot of that went away. So not a lot of like small shops to work in, but there are jobs like that that come available. But I think healthcare, government jobs, those are probably the vast majority of people work for those few industries.
Ryan, we've got a couple questions in the comments section, and we'll get to those in just a second, guys. But I did have a question that if you are coming in from out of state and you're trying to apply for these positions, I know in other parts of Alaska it can be a little challenging to kind of get your foot in the door. Is that kind of the same thing you see with Kodiak, or
No,
um,
no.
no? Okay.
they
And
need people here. We need people to move here. We have way more jobs than people. And that's another reason, like for a couple of years, I worked as a substitute because my kids came home and told me that their teacher wasn't, oh gosh, their teacher wasn't there for third period. So they had to go to the library and do a study hall because there was no substitute. And so I started working as a substitute for a couple of years until COVID ruined all that for me. But yeah, like sometimes people just do jobs because they're like, someone's got to do it. I guess I might as well pitch in. Um, the hospital, a lot of people move here just for jobs within Providence. A lot of people move here with the Coast Guard. If you want to come down here and work in the canneries or work on a boat, you can come down and do that. You can absolutely come down here and do that and find a job very easily. If you're a hard worker, it's easy to find good employment, and there's good people here. They're not what's the word, like shady, like gonna rip you off or
right.
anything. It's not like that. Everybody here like is polite to each other because like I have to see you next time I go to Safeway, right? Like I never who I'm going to run into when I go into a restaurant. I don't want to walk in and see my worst enemy. So you just don't make enemies here. You just be nice, and everyone else kind of follows along with that. But yeah, it's pretty easy to find a job here. I think if someone wants to work, they can.
How much would you say on average? And keep in mind, I mean, this is an average. It's not going to be everyone's situation, like ton of different variables. But if you had to give a range, what's kind of the average that someone will make, like working on a crabbing boat or doing something with the cannery?
So the people at the cannery probably make 50,000 a year. I mean, depending on what position, I would guess around there. If you get on a, it's like the ways of fishing, like you wouldn't just like come here, never have fished before and go out on a crabbing boat. You would start on a littler boat and work your way up over years. If you go out, if you're lucky enough to get enough experience and to get out on one of those big crab boats, like that's on the Deadliest Catch, those guys can make $100,000 real quick. Crab goes for a lot if the cannery's paying a decent price. This year they had to strike for like 2 weeks for the Tanner crab season because the cannery didn't want to pay them a price, and so all the fishermen they got together and they striked, and they ended up getting more money. We had to cancel the king crab. I think it's a king crab got canceled this year because of the population decline that they're kind of concerned about. But so crabbing this year isn't as big, but I imagine like a guy with a decent enough experience and on a good boat, you could make six figures. On the smaller boats, those guys are probably making 40,000 a year, I'd say. Um, Teachers here probably making about that. Is a hospital pretty similar? I think a kid that just gets out of high school, no job experience, can go find a job here. Probably $17, $18 an hour is what I've been seeing, just because I have teenagers that are doing that right now.
Right.
That's kind of like the starting pay for most of the jobs here in town. You can get lucky and find something that pays more. If you've got a college degree, you can get a lot more money, like being a teacher, than if they'll let people go teach the aides and help that are just high school. Like you don't have to have a college degree to get started working with our schools district here, because we have such a shortage of people. So if you're a teacher and you're thinking about moving to Alaska, give me a call because we need teachers. I have 6 kids that are in our school system here. Well, 2 have graduated now, and 1 went back to work at the school. So we need teachers. I'm pretty passionate about getting that school staffed because it's difficult when you have that many children. We have a lot of kids here. It's a great place to raise your kids. I don't have to worry about a lot of things that people have to worry about, living in civilization. My kids can just go run around and do what they want to do. I'm not worried about them. And I think that's worth a lot, right? So it's like the pay doesn't really, it's expensive and the financial pressures are a lot here. And so that's but it's such a great place to raise the kids that a lot of people are willing to work the 2 jobs that they need to feed their family and have a good life here. Um, Not everyone has to work 2 jobs, though. A lot of people just make good money working one.
Yeah. Outstanding. Outstanding. So, got a question here from Mr. Oliver again. So, are there any oyster farms?
We do not have any oyster farms yet. So mariculture is a project I'm really been following and excited about. We have seaweed farms here. We have a couple people that have started their kelp farms, and that's been going for a few years. We have a processor here to handle seaweed, and I think oysters are going to probably someone will start doing that soon, on a bigger like on a commercial scale. So if someone wants to get into mariculture and start an oyster farm, the state of Alaska has grants that help with that. And I've really studied. It's a weird question that you would ask that, but I've really studied into this. I think I have a lot of time, and I went through all the classes and everything to learn how to do an oyster farm or a seaweed farm. Mariculture, I think, is where it's going to be the next big economy boost here in Kodiak. I think that once these guys start turning a bigger profit, other people will follow suit. And I think that within the next 20 years, you're going to see a pretty big seaweed um, oyster farming because if you farm those together, that's beneficial for both things, for the kelp and for the oysters. Um, my prediction is we'll see that be a bigger thing. It's just a baby right now, mariculture in Alaska. And so I think if someone wants to get in on that, like now is the time to do that because the state will give you grants, they'll tell you what to do. And I mean, they'll tell you everything that you need to do to start an oyster farm. We do have a family here that catches scallops and they sell scallops. I think there's one family here that does that primarily. But not a whole lot of that. You would think, though, there would be more of that going on here. Most of the oyster farms in Alaska are in Homer or Seward, not here. And I think that's just because of my idea about that is just nowhere to process it here. Like if I go get a bunch of oysters, where am I going to take them? Like there's not a cannery for that yet.
That's smart. That's smart. Are you accepting investment funds for getting an oyster farm going?
You have
That's
to
not
call
from the
me.
comment section. That's just for me.
Um, So I really want to do an oyster farm, and I went through all the classes, and my family went through all of it. We have a big boat tender, we have little boats, we have all the equipment, everything we would need. But it's just a matter of they already are doing a couple different fisheries. They have the set net site, they run the tender to out in Bristol Bay Fishery, and so I'm trying to convince my dad to just do this in the wintertime with the tender because right now it's just sitting in Seward. So maybe in a couple years.
Yeah.
But I think
So what's the tender then?
so.
And when you
A
say oyster farm, I kind of envision you have like a big giant like aquarium tank, but it's sounding like it's a little more involved than that. Okay.
So
So
you can lease up to 100 acres from the state of Alaska. You can lease up to 100 acres of ocean. And what you do is you put like lines that go across the water like this, and then they have lines that go down like this. And then they hold cages, and you put the oysters in there, and then they grow. And then you have to go out and check it constantly because like otters will get in there and fish and whatnot. And so what they were talking about was what they're doing up there on the mainland is they're doing line of kelp, line of oysters, line of kelp, line of oysters. And when they do it like that, like it's beneficial for both the species. Um, but it's like a grid out in the ocean. It's not on land. It's not like a contained thing. It's just you're like intentionally growing seaweed. You have to get the seeds put on string and then you just go hang it all. Kind of a tedious process, but there's a processor here that will do that, like seed the string, and then you have to go collect the spores and then you have to go do that. But it's it's simple but difficult, if that makes sense.
yeah, because how do you keep like a pot of killer whales from messing with your oysters? Because they kind of just do whatever they want. So how do you like keep those bigger mammals away from your farm?
So constant monitoring, I guess. I that's the challenge. There's a lot of challenges with this. Um, you would think like funding would be the challenge, but there's lots of funding from the state. The challenge is like what you're saying right there, or like logistically, how do I make sure that this is gonna end up like not all getting eaten by otters or killer whales or whatever. Let's just stop a pot of whales swimming through here and just destroying all my kelp. There's nothing like that. So you try and put it in a place that's protected that you can kind of see from land. There's one right off in your island, and like the killer whales aren't going to go right there, right?
Right.
It's heavily traveled. And there's one right out there, and I think it's more like an experiment at this point. There are two different families I know that are doing it though. They're farming the seaweed and making money. Um, it's a very interesting concept though. I think that that's something I'm excited about because I know that's going to help us here. We always need more industry here.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, that's interesting. We're probably gonna have to circle up and talk about that some other time too. I've never heard of this concept before, so I'm very intrigued. So let's go and do this. We've got a question from Alaska Big Game Someday, and I need to swap out this battery real quick, so I'll let you take this one. Do you have easy access to crab and shrimp for personal take?
Yeah, so I don't have a crab boat or anything, and most people here don't. But what happens is that the fishermen go out and they get them. So just a couple weeks ago on Facebook, everybody was posting like, "Come down to this boat. Crab are $15 a piece, and you can just go down there and get as many as you want. You got to bring your own container, and you can just get 5 or 6 crab. Go home. You can freeze them. You can cook them. Whatever you're gonna do." Um, we just had Trader crab this year. We didn't get any kings though because the population situation. And shrimp, same thing. Like you can go do that. We also have a place here called Island Seafoods, and you can look that one up on Google. I'm not, like for the contact info, but they'll send you crab. You can order it, and they'll just send it to you already processed, ready to go. Um, and we can go buy that if we want. I don't really do anything. I just have family that brings me things. But except for the crab, because we have gone down and got them off the boat. That's been kind of a tradition my whole life. Um, During crab season, and we see people saying, "Oh, go down to this boat." We go down there, get crab, boil them. Kids, well, one of my earliest memories is a crab chasing me around the living room. I don't do that to my kids. I keep them in the cooler.
That's like your very first memory. Like that's how you came online.
Yeah.
Sense of danger from day one.
Yeah. So my dad would do that because he thought it was funny. He would let the crabs chase us around before he cooked them. So I don't do that. I'm nice.
Sounds legit. So, got a
Yeah.
quick comment from Oliver. I think this is kind of going back to the oyster farms to rotate cages from baby grown. I saw something about it. I think on Wales, Prince of Wales Island.
Yeah.
That is good to know. So, question from Oliver here with hunting guide: is it with pack horses? If so, do hunting? Okay, you're shaking your head.
No, there's no like with a horse hunt scare. I know up in different parts of Alaska you can do that. Here it's small aircraft that takes them out and drops them off, and then they hike around, and then a small airplane comes and gets them and takes them back, or they take a boat. A lot of the times people will take a small boat and they'll go out to where they want to go hunting. They'll go up on the anchor near the beach, wait out, get on the shore, get all their equipment, backpacks on, go hike, go get a deer, come bring it back and ride the boat back to town. A lot of times, like what they'll do is they'll say, "Okay, this pilot's going to drop me off here, pick me up in the same spot in 3 days." And people do it. And so they'll take all their stuff and just set up a camp. Um, I know that there's like the Roars Bear Camp. They have like a cabin out there, everything, beds, food, all that kind of stuff. And they just hunt from their camp, encampment part. Yeah, but it's not like horses. I know that happens up in interior Alaska. There's that kind of hunting.
Yeah, not so much over in Kodiak. I mean, also just the logistics of like getting horses from point A to point B is, that's a
Yeah.
whole different thing. I've actually seen like, some of the cows and the agriculture up there and like a couple of horses, but I want to say there's probably like less than, I'm going to say maybe 20 horses, maybe to the entire island. So
Something
Not
like
a
that. Yeah, and they're just for fun. They're not workhorses of any kind. They're just for fun. So we have a fairgrounds, and we have stables out there, and like rodeo every year. We have people that just like to have horses for fun, but it's not like a hunting situation. Oh, the other thing out there by that fairgrounds, if you're into motocross, there's a huge raceway out there, and they do races on the weekends in the summer. It's really cool.
really
Yeah,
on Kodiak.
right by that fairground rodeo thing. Kind of out the road a little bit past the airport. There is a huge raceway, and they do dirt bikes and then cars as well, drag cars. It's pretty cool to go out there and watch. And it kind of everybody in town is out there. You know, everybody are cheering, and it's a good time. Um, yeah, and then the horses, we like to go out there and watch them all do the rodeo once a year.
That's
But like you said, it's only a few.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I mean,
We have a lot of buffalo though.
yep.
That's different.
Wait, hold up. Buffalo, like, how many buffalo do you guys have at this point? Then I
I'm
don't
not
think
even
I've seen one
sure.
of those.
It's a big herd, and you can pay the person that owns them to get to help one.
Interesting. Okay, so they're like domesticated buffalo, or are they just kind of turned loose out into the wild? And
They're turned loose. Like when you went out to Surfers Beach, did you see any of them?
I
They
don't
all
think
out that way.
so. I did see like some big, fluffy, um, furry, cozy. That's probably the best word I can think of. Cozy looking cows along the way. I don't think those were buffalo, but
Okay. Yeah, they're not they're they roam around over by that beach in a big herd.
interesting. Okay, I don't think I've seen that then, but
Yeah. Um it's all just I think in the summertime especially they're out like when you're driving and you see them. And so we do have like that, and then horses. Not too many though. Not too many.
yep, not the big agricultural scene here. So, quick question coming in from Quarter Sister: is there a possibility to work together with marine biologists to monitor sea otters? Might the constant human presence on boats keep them away?
So we actually have a pretty healthy, like we have fish and game here, and they do a really good job of managing our wildlife here. And the Russians, when they came, they really devastated the sea otter population, like hunted them almost to the point of extinction. And because we have such good management now, there are otters everywhere. It's they're I would never guess that they were like endangered. They're everywhere. Every time you go out in a kayak, you're going to see an otter. Every time you go out on a boat, you're probably going to see an otter if you're looking. But yeah, I think that it's important that they're protective. Like nobody can kill them and get them for their fur anymore, and like that kind of thing. That's awful because they're just adorable to watch, and they're playful, and they're not really aggressive animals. So I'm really glad that that population has rebounded as much as it has. And I believe like our biologists here do a really good job. Our fish and game is on point. They do a fantastic job of managing the wildlife and the interaction that people have with that wildlife. You know, when you're out here on the edge of civilization, you're going to interact with the wildlife more than if you're in a big city. And I think that when people move here, like you just want to be aware of that, like to be respectful of the animals.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Kodiak, it's not a matter of if, but when you run into something. Like for me, my big thing was just wanting to see a Kodiak bear someday within the 5 days. But I got there, got off the ferry, like drove down the road a little bit, and there was a stream like right there at the end of the road. You probably know which road I'm talking about then. But there's like a little stream, a river, creek right there. And like one guy, you've got a bridge. On one side of the bridge, it's only about, 10 feet from the water. There's just a big Kodiak bear just hanging out right there. And on the other side of the road, downstream is this fisherman, and he has no clue that this bear is like less than less than 50 feet away.
Yeah.
So I went over there. I was like, dude, you know what's going on over here? And he's like, are you kidding me? There was another guy that was just over there a couple minutes ago, did not even bother telling me that this was there.
That's great.
So yeah,
Um,
you're
yeah,
gonna come in close contact all the time. And yeah, just
yeah,
know proper etiquette. If you know something, say something. That's kind of the policy for bears in the
yeah. And
area.
people will put up, like, when we go to the trails, like at the trailhead, there'll be a paper post taped onto the fence, like bear sighted on Thursday, or whatever, you know. Um, the other part of that is you really have to be careful because I mean, it's a bear. So we never go hiking or for a walk unless we have bear mace with us. The bears really aren't interested in eating the people. I've never had one like charge at me or anything. I've been very close to bears. I can't even count how many times I've been like walk up and oh, there's a bear. I have no idea. It's happened so many times in my life. But I've never had to like use bear mace. They usually just like are doing their own thing. So when I ran into them and they're on a river fishing, they're more interested in getting that fish than me. So we kind of just back away slowly. You never run. In school, they teach us, if a bear comes, play dead, cover your head. Always carry bear mace with us if we're going out hiking. My husband always makes sure that though that we're safe whenever he goes with the dogs. That's another thing why a lot of people here have dogs and they go hiking. Dogs are loud, they make a lot of noise, and then we don't see any bears. Uh, One time my husband was up hiking and he came back and he told me there was a bear up there, and both these dogs just came and hid behind him. So, and the bear just walked off, So it's not as scary, I think, as it sounds. The bears, especially in your town, are generally used to people. There's a thing called Kodiak Camera Club, and they'll say, "Oh, there's bears out at the Buskin River," and all of them will go out there and take pictures all together. And they're quiet and respectful and stay at a safe distance, and that's really cool. But yeah, we've had one guy, he was running with headphones on, and he got attacked by a bear. He ran right into it, and he had bear mace, and he was able to get it out and spray it, and it saved his life a couple years ago. And that's the only bear attack I've heard of in the last decade. So,
Guy running with headphones. Yeah, that could have been me, legitimately.
no, you don't run with headphones. Don't do it. The birds are the music.
There you go. The sound of being alive. That's the music.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Coming in from Big Game, Alaska Sunday. How is the kids' sports program there?
Wonderful. We are so lucky in Kodiak to have such a close knit community. Athletics are really a big part of growing up here. There's not a lot else to go do. So you join the basketball team, you join the football team, join the hockey team. Um, I have a kid that swims. I have another one that likes to play soccer. There's dance here. There's ballet. There's cheerleading. Just every sport that you can think of. And surprisingly, like that's one of the reasons the kids like to join the sports teams is that they get to travel to compete. So those kids get to go all over Anchorage, go up to Wasilla, go up to Homer, go up to just different places to compete. And then we get to host a lot of schools here too. But athletics are a huge part of growing up here. Um, we're really lucky to have really, really special people that are dedicated to our kids and um, wanting to make that positive impact. And it's just something to do um, to make sure my kids are always in sports, always doing activities. I feel like it's easier to do here logistically um, because I don't have to take one kid here and one kid there. They pretty much all go to the same school, do their sports at the same place, like the swimming pool is at the high school. And the football field is next to the high school. The hockey rink is next to the high school. Everything is. And so it's really neat, except for parking. That's the only part. But yeah, I think we're really lucky as far as that goes. I have a daughter that's really into drama. That's the other thing. We have really awesome people here in our community that pour a lot into that. The community Kodiak Arts Council. Um, they do a lot of plays. So they just did last week. They did a play, Chicago, huge production, and they do a fantastic job. But they're always working on a play, always rehearsing, always something happening at our little theater here. So we have a pretty big auditorium, also, and a pretty big gym for sports. We have a hockey rink. We have a
football field, a track. I'm trying to think. We have trails for cross country skiing. Cross country running is huge here. Huge. I mean, imagine why. But yeah, I think we've got a lot of people that really invested in our kids. And so athletics are a really big thing. And not even just for the kids. There's adult leagues for volleyball, for basketball, for whatever you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed like any one of these like smaller towns, like sports just becomes so much more important. I think it's yeah, I think it's really just that that teamwork working together. You just feel that way more often in a smaller town than you do in like I was gonna say like LA, but even like Anchorage or Wasilla, I guess is gonna feel feel bigger. But
Yeah.
okay. Well, folks, we're gonna start winding down here then. If you this is kind of your final call for those of you who have any questions, maybe you've been shy and haven't wanted to throw them out there just yet. If you're wanting to, then this is going to be your time to do it. But um, yeah, let me go ahead and ask you this question real quick while people are kind of working on their final call questions. What are we've spoken a lot and we've kind of alluded to a lot of these pros and cons, but what succinctly are kind of the pros and cons of living on Kodiak?
Okay. So for pros, I would say low crime, community environment, like a real community. Um, no traffic, no commute time. Um, Friendly people, like community spirit, I think is one of my favorite things about here. Someone gets sick, they don't have to cook dinner. Someone bring it to them. Um, I think the schools here, this is, I wouldn't want my kids going to any other schools. I think the schools here are some of the best in the world. Um, Hunting, fishing, going to the beach, hiking, those are all the pros. The cons would be rain. So we're in Alaska, we don't get a lot of snow, we get rain. We get rain like every which way, like in that movie Forrest Gump. It always makes me laugh. Like rain that comes up, rain that comes down, rain goes aside. Um, we get rain a lot here and ice. So the roads will be icy. That I don't like that. My kids don't like that because they walk a lot to their activities. It's not far, but it'd be icy and windy. So the weather, I think, in the winter is definitely a con. Um, Limited opportunities. You can't just do anything you want to do, right? So if I was in Anchorage, I could say I want to build a huge real estate team and sell 100 houses a year. I can't do that here. I can only sell what I can sell here because it's a smaller population. Um, I think as far as if people are looking to, what's the word, like move up in the world, a lot of times to take a promotion, they have to move off the island. That's kind of an issue. Um, Oh, another pro about here we haven't even got into. We're one of the only cities in America, probably in the world, that's 99% renewable energy because it's all wind. So our electric isn't so
Oh,
expensive. Um, so that's a pro, cheap electricity or cheaper. And not having that dependence on like the grid. It's just all wind energy from here. The other, like another con about being here is like limited people. So if you're somebody who likes to meet new people all the time, after a few weeks, you're going to run out. Probably not, but I think that's one thing that I miss about being up in Anchorage is like, I was always meeting new people up there. And here it just seems like it's the same people over and over, which I like. I like the people here. Um
better be good at making good first impressions, though.
yeah. Oh, another con is like if I want to, so say I wanted like to go out to dinner, like just the choice, being able to go to a big movie theater, being able to go to the mall, those kind of things. It just doesn't happen here. Travel can be hard getting to and from here. You always have to plan extra days. So like those are some of the cons, I'd say. You just have to plan ahead. Um, oh, and the cost of shipping, or if people will even ship things here. Like I had someone wanting to buy a treadmill. Like, how do I buy a treadmill? Amazon won't ship it here. You have to go buy a used one. Like, that's what you end up doing. It's like, what are you going to do? But yeah, that's some of the harder parts about living here would be the shipping stuff here.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're moving to Kodiak, I think kind of the takeaway is you just have to accept that it's an entire lifestyle, and one of the sacrifices is you're probably not going to have as many opportunities like you mentioned, and just be happy with the trade-off you're making between that and all the pros that you're getting with having the community and all the activities and having the lifestyle that you want too.
Exactly.
Outstanding. So we've got one more question here from Oliver Wright. And again, folks, this is kind of your final call. So what form of martial arts do they have? Krav Maga, any shooting ranges?
Shooting ranges, I think there's two. Yeah. No, there's one. I think one that's official and one that's kind of not. But yeah, they have a shooting range here. I don't. They have a karate. There's a guy that does karate. He owns the jewelry store. He also has the karate studio. I don't think. Sorry, I don't think beyond that there's really much martial arts going on here. I know that there's people that do that like together in a house. So my husband goes and practices judo with guys sometimes, but it's not like a commercial activity. We have CrossFit, um, an independent gym. We have Canada, which is our native association, has a big gym. And there's like a gym out on the base too, I believe. So there's lots of gyms to go to, and probably people that are doing martial arts on the island that you would probably meet because it's a small place. And if you came here and said, "Oh, I really like doing Krav Maga," you're going to find somebody like that you can practice that art with. But it's not like, like I can't just go sign my kids up for taekwondo. That's what my kids miss was in Anchorage, because I worked all the time. They would go from school to taekwondo, and they can't do that here. So trade off.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, Katrina, again, I really do appreciate you kind of sharing with everybody, what your experience has been like, and really what it's like living on Kodiak. For a lot of people, it's just kind of a perspective that they're just not going to be able to find any other way. For anyone who is considering relocating to Kodiak and thinking about making that adjustment in the future, what's going to be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
I think if you want to email me, Katrina Benton at kw.com, or you can call me 907-301-0189.
Outstanding. Well, again, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. And, we'll have a live stream up here for you in the next couple of weeks. And, thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we'll catch you next time.